All right, let's jump right in with a really fascinating question. We all face challenges, right? But have you ever wondered why some people seem to just roll with the punches and even thrive, while others really struggle? Well, the answer might just lie in this simple but really powerful idea from Swedish folk wisdom. It all comes down to this. Are you a dandelion or are you an orchid?
So the idea is that people are kind of like one of two plants. First, you've got your dandelions. You know them. They're the hardy ones. They can thrive absolutely anywhere, pushing through cracks in the sidewalk, growing in terrible soil, you name it. They just adapt. And then you have orchids. Orchids are, of course, beautiful and can flourish like you wouldn't believe, but only under very specific conditions. They need the perfect soil, just the right amount of light, and super precise watering. So just for a second, think about it. Which one sounds more like you? Are you someone who can handle pretty much anything life throws your way? Or do you feel like you really need the right environment to truly shine? And look, this isn't just some fun personality quiz. It's actually the first step to understanding the very nature of your own resilience. Now, we throw around the word resilience a lot, and most of us think it just means bouncing back to where you were before. But the science shows it's so much deeper than that. True resilience is actually closer to this idea of being anti-fragile. It's the process of not just surviving a challenge, but adapting and literally growing stronger because of it. It's all about transformation, not just recovery. Okay, so let's dig a little deeper into the science behind this powerful analogy. Because understanding your own nature, which plant you are, that's the first step toward cultivating a more resilient mind. And what's so fascinating is that psychological research actually backs this up. Studies suggest that the population breaks down pretty much like this. About 75% of us are dandelions. We have a naturally high baseline of resilience. And that means the other 25% of us are orchids. Okay, and this is a super important point. Being an orchid is not a flaw. It's not about being weak. What researchers call it is having a high biological sensitivity to context, which is really just a fancy way of saying you're more malleable, more deeply affected by your surroundings, for better and for worse. And this is where the orchid's hidden potential really comes out. Yeah, in a harsh, unsupportive environment, they might struggle more than a dandelion would. But, and this is a huge but, in a supportive, nurturing environment, they don't just do okay. They can absolutely flourish and even outperform everyone else. That sensitivity, it becomes their superpower. All right, so we've got the analogy down. Now let's switch gears and look at the actual hardware inside our skulls. Because resilience isn't just a mindset, it's a physical part of you that you can actually train. Believe it or not, deep inside your brain, you have what we can call a resilience engine. Now, the scientific name for it is the Anterior Cingulate Cortex, and it's basically the central hub for navigating difficulty. It's the part that lights up when you face a choice. Do I push through this or do I quit? Think of it like your brain's command center for any tough situation. It's constantly running these split-second calculations, like, is the reward worth the pain? How much effort is this really going to take? Then it preps your body for action and makes that final call. Keep going or pull back. But here is the absolute best part. This isn't set in stone. Just like a muscle in your arm, you can actually train your brain's resilience engine to get stronger and more effective. So the big question is, how do you actually do it? Well, the research points to 3 key activities. First, aerobic exercise. Consistently pushing through that physical discomfort literally builds up the gray matter in this part of the brain. Second, taking on meaningful cognitive challenges. Think learning a new skill or a language. And third, and this one might surprise you, nurturing strong social connections. No joke, your friendships are literally building you a more resilient brain. So now that we know about the hardware, let's talk about the software. How do you apply just the right amount of stress to actually trigger growth without causing a total breakdown? Well, the key is finding what's called your Goldilocks zone. Yeah, just like the fairy tale, real growth requires a just right amount of challenge. See, too little pain, like, say, a rock in your shoe, it's just a nuisance. It doesn't build character. Too much pain is overwhelming. It's traumatizing. The sweet spot, the place where you build resilience, lies right there in the middle. A challenge that is meaningful and difficult, but ultimately one you can handle. Okay, but here's the catch, and it's a big one. Your mind has this built-in safety system that is designed to make you stop long before you've actually reached your real limit. The key thing to understand is this. Your mind isn't optimized for growth. It's optimized for comfort and safety. You could say, it's a bit of a drama queen. It'll tell you you're on empty when you've actually got plenty left in the tank. Okay, so how do we put all this together? Let's bring it all back to our plant analogy. Because whether you're a dandelion or an orchid, you have to actively tend to your own garden to truly thrive. We can break this all down into 3 simple, actionable steps. First, you have to question the stories your mind is telling you. Second, you have to intentionally find your challenge. And third, you need to build a strong biological foundation to support the whole thing. Step 1. You've got to question the stories you tell yourself. That little voice in your head that says, I can't do this. That's a story. It is not a fact. This is really a core principle of cognitive behavioral therapy. You develop the skill to recognize those limiting stories, and then you actively question them. Remember, just because you think it, that doesn't make it true.
All right, number 2, you have to intentionally seek out your challenge. This is something called stress inoculation. It's about deliberately and repeatedly taking on hard things that feel just a little bit outside your comfort zone. It could be a tough workout, a difficult conversation, a new project, doesn't matter. Each time you push through and succeed, you expand your capacity for the next challenge.
And finally, step 3, build your biological foundation. Because none of this mental work is going to stick if you don't have a solid foundation. Mental resilience is physical. This means actively managing your stress with things like deep breathing. It means improving your heart rate variability, which is your body's sign of adaptability. And of course, it means prioritizing the fundamentals, your sleep and your exercise. These are the habits that build up the energy reserves you need when things get tough.
So at the end of the day, whether you see yourself as a hardy dandelion or a sensitive orchid, the path forward is actually the same. Resilience isn't some fixed trait that you either have or you don't. It's a garden that you have to actively cultivate. So the only real question left is, how are you going to tend to yours?